The king's back. 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 The king's back.
Yeah, what's up? What's good? What's happening? Good morning if you're here in the US. Good evening or good afternoon if you're watching internationally, because I have some international watchers on my live stream. I am the actual King Smith, and this is my morning thoughts video as I start the day off. Had a couple of things that came across that discussions that I had yesterday and some things that hit the news cycle that I wanted to talk about as I start my day. Like doing these things kind of helps me get the brain flowing this morning. If there's a like button on your platform, do me a favor, mash that like button as that helps me out on the algorithms. We're going to jump right into it as I have an appointment to get to this morning. And the first thing that I want to talk about is my thoughts about the Minneapolis, Minnesota church school shooting that had occurred yesterday, Wednesday, August the 27th. There was a mass shooting that had occurred during morning mass, which was intended to mark the first week of school. A 23-year-old dude by the name of Robin Westman, which I had to kind of take a look at that. And when you hear the name, you kind of want to associate and think about what this person might look like. But Robert Westman opened fire through a church window with a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol, all of which was legally purchased, by the way, and fired dozens of rounds at this school, killing 2 children, ages 8 and 10, injuring 17 others, including 14 other children and a few elderly parishioners. The shooter died at the scene from a self-inflicted wound. Try to make sure that I can say things that are YouTube appropriate here. And as of right now, this is being labeled as an act of domestic terrorism and anti-Catholic hate crime, as there was a manifesto that was discovered at this person's location of where they lived and videos that were linked to the attacker. There was a couple of things that came along with this, right? This is the first week of school for a lot of different places around the US anyway. I don't know how things work internationally. And some places are considered sacred, right? Throughout our history, there's been some attacks that have came at churches. There's been some attacks that have came at schools, but these are places that are supposed to be safe, safe spaces. Um, so why does this stuff keep happening? It's it makes you wonder, right? Um, what makes somebody break the way that they break to go past the areas that are I'm not gonna say off limits because I don't know if that's appropriate or if that's the right thing to say. But this type of, tragedy makes you wonder that when a place of worship can become a target or a school can become a target by one individual, what protections need to happen for real change to occur to where these disturbed individuals won't consider that to be an option. I like that the governor came out and he said something about when something like this happens, we should stop with the thoughts and prayers because literally they were doing thoughts and prayers before school at this mass event when this had occurred. Some type of accountability and change needs to happen. I don't think we hold people accountable enough to where people think that they could just get off and do things. And when something like this happens, what um or how do you go about to rebuild a sense of safety when something like that occurs? It's an ultimate violation. There are parents that are going to be without their children, siblings without their siblings, all because some disturbed individual decided to go out and take action and do things that he shouldn't have done. It is definitely tragic, something that I hope that I never have to experience or something that I hope doesn't occur to anybody that I know and love. So that's my thoughts on it. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Is there anything that can be done to drive real change when something like this happens that can get people to stop doing that type of senseless violence? I'm curious what more is going to come out about this person if they're ever going to like. I don't even think you can publicly release the manifesto because then it's going to encourage somebody else to come out and do the same thing. See, I don't even the world is weird. Let me just stop there. The world is weird. Let's change subjects here. I was doing some things with somebody the other day, and in the business world, right? There's a I just learned that the word stakeholder, which nonprofits, project managers, the government, a stakeholder is a word that is normally used to define somebody that has a stake in something. Meaning, if I'm a project manager and I'm going to build a building next door and I'm going to be managing that as a project, I identify people that have interest in that building. And that is what a stakeholder is. Now I'm learning that all of a sudden that word is deemed offensive. And I'm like, wait, since when? Also, with words, right? In our language in general, who is the people that are determining that these types of words are changing. That this word that is, I'm going to say universally known to mean one thing, somebody somewhere goes, that's offensive to certain individuals. And I had some notes here. Let me see if I could go back and find them, because it didn't make sense to me that you can say uh, uh, um, that this is offensive. All right, so the old meaning of stakeholder, like I said earlier, is people who have a stake in a decision. Employees, investors, citizens, community members, etc. Right? People are I found out that it could mean offensive because stake is linked to imagery of colonialism, people being staked to land, and indigenous groups are pushing for the change to say rights holder instead of stakeholder. But when does that stop? When does that stop? Jason Washington said, "You've been killing it the last 3 days." Hey, man, thank you. And he said it's the machine, not people, and that the term female is making women mad. And that's the thing. It's like these words. Now, when I was talking about this with somebody, Jason, they said, "Well, it was just like how the term Negro has shifted." Um, or I think somebody else, when I was talking about this, said that you really don't want to say black anymore, and how even being called black is offensive. Um, it just, I think that with certain stuff, well, what's that word? There's a certain word for it. I'd have to Google it right now. Etymology. At some point, intent should matter more than the etymology of a word. That's a big word. I do know big words sometimes. And if we keep rewriting history into every word, where does it stop? Are we going to ban having a stake in the game next? I'm curious though. Do y'all think that calling somebody a stakeholder is disrespectful, or is it? Are we starting to reach too far with this? And have you ever been told that a word that you have been using was completely that you thought was a right word was wrong? Now, I will say this. I'll say this. There are a couple of words that over the last 20 or so odd years have changed to where you just don't say it anymore. If you go back and look at some of these 90s sitcoms, late 90s, early 2000s sitcoms, there's there's been some that have had the words changed because back then it wasn't considered offensive. And I'm not going to say them on air. That's the thing. I like my job. I'm not trying to get canceled. I'm not going to say what these words are on air. But back in the 90s, it wasn't offensive. Fast forward to 2025, offensive. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just having the conversation. Jason Washington said everybody wants to be offended. 100%. Offending a person is the easiest thing in the world to do. I think offending people who have nothing to do is one of the easiest things in the world to do. Because think about this, if you have more pressing stuff to worry about, then what are you going to be offended by? Like, I'm not offended by much. There was something that I felt offended by the other day, and I can't even really recall what it was. I'm not offended by much because at the end of the day, it's not that like I don't care. I just have other important shit to attend to. Another comment here. I can't begin. This white German told me not to use that term. I was like, I'm native. Okay. A white German told you not to use the term native. Nice. Let's see. The last thing that I've got here, and I'm going to make a little bit of a shift, is the word socially awkward, right? And I was having a conversation with some people um, about Castle and how the word socially awkward is looked at, and what do you use to determine that somebody is socially awkward. For example, I believe I have socially awkward moments. There's a couple of things that I can't do that I'm bad at, if I am put in these situations, chances are I'm going to miss the social cues. As much as I'm a gregarious person, I can't tell when I'm being flirted to. I think that it is unless you come and flat out tell me, "Hey, you're handsome. I like you. What's up?" I think that if you're communicating with me, that you're just having a regular conversation. So I have missed flirting cues from ladies because it is hard for me to distinguish the difference between flirting, unless it's, and when I say overt, like straight up 100% overt, I miss that because I don't see the subtle things about flirting that most other people do. That's one thing to know about me. The other thing that I miss a lot is sarcasm. There's obvious sarcasm that if it's said, I can catch. But for the most part, I take people for their word. So when they say something and it's sarcastic, but it's not said in an overly exaggerated manner, I'm assuming you mean what you say for the most part. This is not an absolute thing. I'm not like this 100%, but in general, I don't catch sarcasm. So does that make me socially awkward in moments? Absolutely. But for the people that know me, would you say that in general I'm socially awkward? Okay. In the late 90s and the early 2000s, um, somebody that was considered socially awkward was, yeah, shy a little bit, maybe a little bit quirky, and not the best at small talk. But in general, I don't believe that that person would be socially awkward. Not everybody's a social butterfly. I think when you have certain people in certain social situations, you have those that are just exceptional communicators in public with people, and they're like the gold standard. Y'all know who those people are. Then I think under those people, you have the average person, and the average person fits a range in that spectrum of average with how they are socially. And then under them, I think there's two more categories. You have socially awkward and just absolutely can't function by some people. And those people are far and few in between. But in having conversations with people, some of the adults my age and peers my age and older are saying that the younger generation, especially the generation that went through school with COVID and everything, they communicate differently. They're a lot more social awkward than people from my generation. I think it's the Gen Z class, that the Gen Z class are just socially awkward. Most of them are. And I have a lot of peers and stuff that have kids that are Gen Z. So if y'all are watching, if y'all listen, or anybody else with Gen Z kids, is that what y'all see? The newer definition and how it is looked at now is that it's often conflated with mental health diagnosis and extreme dysfunction. And now people are starting to wear it with a badge of honor, saying, "Look, I'm socially awkward. That's who I am." And it's not just a description of behavior. They're looking at it like that's who they are. But I think that that's dangerous. I think if you're a little bit quirky, that doesn't automatically make you socially awkward. I think that you know those people who are just socially awkward. Like if you have somebody that you know is socially awkward, you typically warn people about these people before they meet them. Hey man, I'm just going to use a name. You know, Johnny's a little bit different. So if he says something that's, you know, out of line, out of whack, or you're like, wait, what? Just don't worry about it, man. He's a little bit socially awkward. Or he's a little bit different. Johnny might be an intelligent person, just doesn't take social cues that well. All right. I think that the advent of the internet has blurred the way that people look at the definition. Because while I think that people can have socially awkward moments, you can look at somebody and tell if they're socially awkward or not in totality, in general. So I don't think you could just blanket say that about yourself or about others and totally change the definition of that. That's what I'm against. All of these changed definitions of stuff is what I'm having a problem with in 2025. Oh man, I think that some people will lean into these labels to feel like they belong and trap themselves in them without actually being what they think that they are. So my question to y'all is, do you think that being socially awkward is a harmless description or a low-key insult? Is the internet making us redefine normalness and redefine normal shyness as a condition? And if you're awkward, is it your responsibility to learn social skills or should the world adapt to you? That's what I'd like to know. That's what I'd like to know. Let's see if I have any comments before we get into closing here. No comments for that part. So let's get into closing here. Um Language defines how we communicate with each other. And if every blah, 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 words today, if every word keeps changing, I think it kills clarity. Today's stakeholder is bad. Tomorrow, partner might be the next word that changes. Maybe next week it could be something else, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting. On socially awkward, if we change the meaning, then are we helping people understand themselves or are we putting people in smaller boxes? I don't know. I think that intent should outweigh these shifting trends. And while words do matter, I think stability of meaning matters more and that should have a bigger weight when combined with intent, and that the problem isn't language evolving naturally, it's language being policed artificially. Who gets to decide what words are offensive? Is this evolution of life or is it just control? I just had a thought. What if we eventually run out of acceptable words? Then what do we do? Do we go into sign language? Is sign language going to be offensive to people that uh can speak? I don't, I'm look, um, I'm just asking questions. I'm just asking questions. Um, is calling yourself socially awkward just an excuse to not improve socially? That's also one thing as well. People don't know I stutter. I have a speech impediment. I used to do speech therapy growing up. I sometimes do things and practice some stuff to improve my fluency without thinking about it. because I've had to do that. I got a compliment the other day from somebody that said that I speak well. And to me, that compliment did a lot for me because I think it takes a lot for me to speak well versus, and I'm going to say, the average person. I've also joined Toastmasters, which has helped. I've taken some courses, which have helped. And I've practiced speech, which have all helped. And I've put myself in situations to be able to be in rooms and not have social awkward moments. I think that this generation, or Gen Z, the generation growing up, could use a little bit more of that than what is going on now. And that should be the responsibility of those that are older to be able to help them out. You can clearly see the Gen Z people who are doing well. And one of the reasons why is you'll take a look at their parents, right? Their mentors, and they might be like professionals themselves. So been able to see that and mimic that, right? Castle wears headphones almost 24/7. And it's due to, man, this is tragic that I forget the condition, but for the most part, um, certain sounds irritate her and it makes it harder for her to concentrate, right? So if you don't know that about her, you would take a look at her and think that in general, she's socially awkward, but you can put her in rooms and she knows how to read the room, right? She can speak to people in the room. She can make friends easily. I think that people that are generally socially awkward can't do that, or it's extremely difficult for them. And I think that if you are somebody that people have to warn you about, that's what makes you socially awkward. But if you're somebody that you don't have to warn somebody about, then in general, you're not socially awkward. You might just have socially awkward moments. So that's my live stream for today. I've got to get ready for a medical appointment and then get to my job. Thanks to everybody that tuned in or those that will tune in. I appreciate you. To Jason Washington, checking in from Germany, Broken Berlin. I appreciate you popping in, man. To those that heard my questions, I really want to know what y'all think. Maybe I'm tripping. I'm the actual King Smith. I'm out. Have a good one. Peace.
Yeah. Come on. Yeah. Trumpets blare the golden call. A throne of weights I wrestle tall. Drums like thunder shake the hall. Royal robe, I wear the weight. Diamonds cut the night, no debate. Heavy is the head, but I'm feeling great. Crown me king, crown me king. Horns will shout, let the kingdom sing. Crown me king, crown me king. Bow to the sound, feel the power I bring. Hey!